Hello, I'm Julie Thompson. Welcome to the Plymouth Select Board candidate interview. I want to take a moment to thank our candidate for participating in this interview and collaborating with PACTV to bring this informational programming to residents and voters this election season. Let me explain the format. Today, Michael Heath will be interviewed. Michael will have 2 minutes to introduce himself, speak about his background, his qualifications, and why he's running for office. He will then be asked a series of questions, which will be an exchange between he and myself. Each question and answer exchange should be no longer than 3 or 4 minutes. He will then have a 2-minute closing statement. Let's get started with your opening statement. This will be timed. Michael, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, my name is Michael Heath. I've been a lifelong Plymouth resident my whole life. I'm 33 years old. I currently work for the town of Plymouth, and that is kind of why I have thrown my hat in the race. I have seen stuff that the average resident doesn't see working for the town. I know there's a lot of negative people that have a lot bad to say. They have rightfully to say it. It's not just what you read online, it's conversations all over the place. I have worked in town in an auto garage for close to 15 years. I've worked for the town of Plymouth for 7. I hold 6 out of the 8 Massachusetts water certifications. And I'm also certified in auto repair and collision repair. I've made a lot of relationships through town, and I have a lot of support, I feel. And I just want to make this a better town. I want to get our government straightened out, and hopefully we can make things more positive, get some more confidence back in our local government.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go to the first question. Fiscal responsibility is always an issue for town governments. The town budget grows every year. How do you balance the financial needs of the town against the financial burden of the residents? Go ahead.
I understand the financial burden of the residents. I think most of us have seen our taxes double in the past 15 years. This town runs like it's on a credit card with a teenager. It just charge, pay later. We just got to come up with a way to just stop the spending, stop the bleeding, stop creating jobs that aren't needed. This town has a lot of space, a lot of land. It needs labor, not paper pushes. We always get paper pushes. We never get labor. It is out of control. And I would like to see the labor end be appreciated.
Okay, so what do you mean by it needs more labor? What do you mean by that?
This town, for what you have for DPW size, you send them out, you have the morale is low. So you're not going to get efficient workers when the morale is so low, but there's always jobs being created in the offices, pushing paper. We just need to stabilize what we have. And I'm hoping that with stabilization, maybe costs can come down for taxes, but at least get the efficiency back for the workers that are doing the job. And it's very hard to get the efficiency out of them with the morale that is so low. But not only you're not proud to work for the town, a lot of people aren't. You'll see that with everywhere from police. The police department's a revolving door. The DPW is a revolving door. You need to get these people proud of what they do to give back to the town and not just try to get through the end of the day.
Okay. Well, how would you then? You're talking about how we spend our money on the labor of who we have working for the town. How would you increase the actual the income of the town? How do we make more revenue coming into the town as an offset?
Well, the town has a lot of revenue coming in. You could see that by the amount of homes that are here, the amount of taxes that go out per home. We obviously, it's been talked about and beaten to death. We need more commercial. A lot of the stuff that we do commercial is spread out. That can be seen with Prestige, what they're doing up at Amazon. A lot of these commercial areas, everything's spread out pretty far. Whereas you get into cities with a lot of commercial, that stuff's more condensed. We spread out, so it's almost impossible to get that kind of commercial, commerce in here. It just seems like things have been done wrong for so long to get to the point where we need X amount of hundreds of millions of dollars to operate the town. And I just feel that we need to get on track, but we need to utilize what we're paying now and get more efficiency out of it. If we get more efficiency out of it, get more for what we're paying, we will be getting on the right track.
Okay, so that kind of leads right into my question two, which is what aspect of our town government needs fixing the most? What needs fixing the least? And do you feel that Plymouth has outgrown its current form of government?
I'm going to start with the last question. The form of government, yes, we have definitely outgrown this form of government. It's based on a lot of volunteers. It costs a ton of money to live in Plymouth. And the volunteers, you're getting retirees or people with time to spare. Those people generally have a little bit more money to spare, where the rest of us are trying to work 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. We don't have the time to volunteer for this form of government that is a lot of volunteer based. So the government you have doesn't represent the majority of who pays in taxes.
Okay, what do you think the town does right? What does our form of government do correctly?
We do have a pretty good school system. I worked in the schools. That was a time where I worked for the town. I was actually proud of what I did. I was just a janitor, but I could at least be proud I worked at the school. This is my area. I keep it clean, walk through. I do work for the water department. I'm not proud to be a part of the town side government. I feel like the people aren't satisfied, rightfully so. The management is terrible, and that is what is not done right. So I think we do got some stuff doing right on the school side. There's a lot of expense on the school side. The town management definitely needs to change. I don't know why our current selectmen haven't made the change. They see what people are saying. It's not just what you see online. It's said all over. The police, the fire, all these departments. It's town-wide. The departments are they're not happy with the current management. And no matter what, the selectmen just don't do anything, to change that.
Okay, that is your opinion on that one, on the form of government and what is being done right or wrong. And question number 3 would be turnover of sitting members of a board, like the select board that you're running for, can be a positive or a negative. What are your thoughts on this?
I think we certainly need to change on the board, especially once you've seen the same people for the past decade or more. I could bring positive things with new train of thought, younger than any of the rest. I could also bring some stuff with lack of experience, but I've always been pretty good entering fields and areas of lack of experience. I will spend sleepless nights until I get things figured out the right way. And anything I lack, I will work and I will grind. And I will get there to try to do the right thing for the people of the town.
Do you think there's an advantage to keeping certain people on the board where there's so much to learn once you become a select person, especially in a town this size? If you constantly have turnover of a board, what would be the detriment to that?
I personally think there should be turnover until the people are happy. I can understand that things won't get done. If you don't have a board that agrees, you're not going to get anything done. Things will just stay the same, or things will just change. We need a board that represents the majority of the people. You can't make everybody happy every time. I understand that. It just seems that the current board just doesn't push management to manage. It's just constant. From working and seeing the inside, it's just constant waste and bad management. And we need a board that is going to hold the management accountable.
Okay, thank you. Now this is a tough one. This is going to be a 20-second rapid response question. So you got to really just put it out there. If you were given $5 million to spend in any way you desired for the town of Plymouth, what would you spend it on?
Other than saving it, because savings is always good, and this town seems to spend faster than it can. I think I would put it towards the roads. That is the most common 100% thing that people just cannot fathom, is the main roads in terrible condition.
Okay, so savings or the roads. Okay, thank you. We'll now move to your closing remarks. You are going to have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
I appreciate everybody watching. This is new for me. Definitely, it wasn't easy. Things that I thought I was going to talk about, I didn't. I hope that I can, if I get the position, that I can make everybody happy. I know I can't make everybody happy, but I will do the best I can. I just want to make this town proud to work for, proud to live in, and I'm going to do the best I can to win and also make the town of Plymouth, the residents, win as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, for participating in this interview. We wish you the best of luck throughout your campaign and in the election. So, Harry, let's get started. You're going to have 2 minutes to do your opening statement.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Harry Helm, first vice chair of the Advisory and Finance Committee, and I'm running for a seat on the Select Board. Plymouth is truly an amazing place to call home. I think we all know that. But we all know that we need a change in our governmental attitude to better serve the residents of Plymouth. Our town government and town hall must become more accountable and transparent. They must take a greater leadership in controlling the relentless upward spiral of our taxes. Residents, you know it and you've talked about it. It's time to stop waiting and finally do something about it. Shortly after moving permanently to Plymouth, I joined the Town Advisory Finance Committee, and I currently serve as the first vice chairman. I volunteered my time to help make Plymouth a more successful community, but we are at an inflection point right now, and that's why it's time for me to leave the Finance Committee and join the Select Board. I will bring my many years of experience and my many years of observing our town government and administration in action to bear in addressing the many issues we face as a town. Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Now we're going to go on to question 1. Fiscal responsibility is always an issue for town government. The town budget grows every year. How do you balance the financial needs of the town against the financial burden to the residents?
Well, one of the main points in my candidacy is tax control and tax efficiency. Currently, 10% of our tax base and our tax revenue comes from the commercial sector. And frankly, that is unacceptable. To relieve the tax burden on the residents of Plymouth, this threshold must be raised to at least 30%. That is absolutely important to the future of our town. And it is something that has been discussed often. This will be, what I'm saying will be no surprise, but it's time that we actually did something about it. And it will take a number of years for that to happen. It could take a couple decades. And in the meantime, we have to come up with new non-tax revenue streams. And that's one of the reasons why I'm in favor and I would push for the reinstatement of the Revenue Ideas Task Force. When it was in existence a few years ago, it came up with many really creative non-tax revenue sources, revenue sources that weren't in existence at the time. They came up with some ideas for tax spending efficiency that I thought were very valuable, and I think we need them back. I also think that we need to start working now on the sunsetting of the meals tax. It's going to take many years to stop that from sunsetting, and we need to start working on that now.
Okay, so from 10% to 30% commercial taxation versus individuals. The non-taxable revenue sources. Can you give me a few examples of those that you studied those few years ago?
Well, I would say that one of them is something that's discussed and seems to have hit a roadblock, and that's the consolidation, where possible, of town and school functions. It's been talked about for a number of years, but we've not seen anything happen on it. And I'm given to understand that it's hit a roadblock between the two sides, the school and the town. I don't think that's a really good reason, and I think we need to push through that. They also came up with ideas about the harbor launch and the fees for people using it. There were a number, and I can't remember exactly what they were, but there were a number of interesting new services the town could provide that would be fee-based for both tourists and for residents. So if you didn't use them, you would not pay taxes on them. So, it's pretty important that they are non-tax.
Okay. Okay. So more service fees in general. Okay. Let me go to question number 2, because I think this all blends in. What aspects of our town government needs fixing the most? What needs fixing the least? And do you feel that Plymouth has actually outgrown its current form of government?
There are a number of questions in there.
There are.
I'm not, I really haven't focused on what Plymouth needs to deal with least. I just off the top of my head, I would say that we probably need to least address, possibly the spending that we do on tourism, and focus more on commercial. And by the way, when I say commercial, I'm not talking about more big box retail and more fast food joints. What I'm talking about is light industrial and office. Okay, they are much more valuable. So their taxes themselves will be more, their assessments will be greater. So anyway, but what I think that we need to fix the most, besides the taxes, but I think it's important that this gets fixed in order to address taxes, is accountability and transparency. In my years of watching how things go on, it really appears that no one is really held accountable for anything. And so mistakes get buried, whether they're in the construction of the sewer main or the original South High School or the library roof. They get buried, and then they, pardon the pun, explode on the scene with very detrimental impacts to the taxpayers of Plymouth. So, that's accountability. And the transparency part is there's an opacity in my mind to what goes on in town management and town government that, given the form of government we currently have, which is town meeting, which is possibly the most democratic form of government in the United States, it depends upon the knowledge of the residents. Not just the town meeting residents, but all residents. They have to be knowledgeable, and they have to have opinions formed from facts and information. And I just feel that information is very, very difficult to come by at this point.
Let me just ask you one follow-up on that before we go on to the next question, though. Don't you feel that residents have the ability to actually see a lot more than a lot of them do see? You can almost everything that the town has to do has to be transparent. If you look at boards and committee meetings, if you actually watch them, isn't most of the information actually available? It's just not looked at?
A lot of it is. You're absolutely right. And that is on the onus on the residents. But from my opinion, a possible question you're going to ask me about, the recent planning board meeting with the Bump Rock Road covenant. I encourage if you didn't watch it, rewatch it when it's on PACTV. It is, to me, an exercise in non-transparency on the part of that board. Okay. And I think that the consequences have flowed outward from that.
Okay, so that would be an example that people could look at for what you're saying.
That's an example.
To make your point. Okay, yep. Let me go to question 3. Turnover of sitting members of a board can be a positive or a negative. What are your thoughts on the turnover of the select board?
Are you referring to the position that is up, or are you
versus
referring
people that
to
have been on it for a while versus brand new people on a board? There's pros and cons to both.
Well, I think
what's your
that,
feelings?
yeah, yeah. Well, generally at this point in time, I'm, obviously pro changing this seat on the select board. I think that it's important that the voters look at who it is who is running and what their experience is, because every single new person on the board is going to have a learning period before they're fully up and running. That's just the way it is anytime any transition, whether it's in the private sector or the governmental sector, that's going to happen. But what you want to look at is who's going to be up and running as quickly as possible, who's going to already have knowledge about how town meeting works, what the scope of the Board of Selectmen actually is, what are the town administration and town hall, let's call it, what are their duties, and how does the Board of Selectmen interface with that, with their responsibilities of overseeing the town administration. So I think that's important in it. And I've had a number of years.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Do you think that it is commonly known exactly what the select board is responsible for? And can you define it in your opinion? What are they responsible for the town of Plymouth?
Well, not to get into detail, they're responsible for overseeing the administration of the town. They're in charge. They are an elected board that oversees a non-elected town administration, and they do that through the town manager. Obviously they are constrained in interactions with other elected boards. But basically the way that I look at it, they're responsible for the efficient running of this town.
Okay. Excellent. All right, great. Let's go to the rapid response 20-second answer question. If you were given $5 million.
Wait, question. You have 20 seconds to ask?
Yeah, 20 seconds to answer.
Go ahead.
If you were given $5 million to spend in any way you desired for the town of Plymouth, what would you spend it on?
Oh my. I would put it in the facilities maintenance fund that was just begun at the last town meeting.
All right. There you go.
Do you want me to explain why?
Nope. I just needed 20 seconds is all you get. So that's where you'd put it, in the facilities maintenance fund. Okay, perfect. And now, Harry, we're ready
Absolutely.
for closing remarks, and you are going to have 2 minutes to do that. So go right ahead.
Okie dokie. Thank you. Foremost, I want everybody to know that I stand with the residents of Plymouth. That's what I'm all about, and that's why I'm running. To that end, I believe there are 3 priorities that we must begin to address immediately. First, tax control. Our property taxes have become a burden to most residents. We must take leadership in reining in the relentless upward spiral of property taxes. A tax base with only 10% commercial contribution is not sustainable. We must push ourselves to achieve a 30% commercial tax base. This is entirely doable, but it will take time. So we also must need to develop new non-tax revenue streams. So I believe it's necessary, as I mentioned before, to reinstate the Revenue Ideas Task Force. When in existence, this group had a number of very creative ideas that were in the non-tax area. We must begin now the process of removing the sunset clause from the meals tax, which is currently paying for the new town hall, but it will sunset. It is a state level occurrence to remove the sunset clause, and it will take a number of years, and we have to start now. We also must address town government inefficiency. This includes pushing for consolidation where possible in town and school functions, and answering the question, why can't Plymouth seem to build anything right the first time? South High School, the sewer system, the library roof, the list goes on and on. Secondly, change must include accountability. Currently, it appears that no one in town management is being held accountable for anything. Mistakes are buried instead of learned from, and problems are hidden and left to suddenly reappear at greater cost to taxpayers. Third, our town government and administration must become transparent in all of its dealings. Easier access to information is needed for our residents to make informed opinions and decisions and to hold officials accountable. Thank you for your time in watching this candidate forum. I hope you will support me on May 15th, but regardless of which candidate you support, I urge you to vote.
Okay, thank you, Harry. Thank you for participating in this interview. We wish you the best of luck throughout your campaign and in the election. Let's get started with the opening statement. Everett, are you ready? You have 2 minutes.
Yes, I am.
All right, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Everett Malaguti. I am running for Plymouth Select Board for 2021, and I would like to introduce myself as being a 4th generation resident of Plymouth. My family goes a long way in town, from the Malaguti Brothers Construction Company that helped with the renovation of the old town hall on Lincoln Street when it was converted from a school to a town hall in the 50s. And my other side of the family, that the Brassaris, who also helped build parts of Plymouth as well too, with the little shoes that used to be a massive attraction in Portage Park back in the 80s. And I would like to say that I've been very involved with the community. I always listen to all sides of an argument before I come beforehand, and actually respect all sides and respect all the residents and taxpayers of town, as we all collectively want the same goals to come about. I have been a member of numerous committees in town, from the Revenue Idea Task Force to the local steering committee in North Plymouth, to also chairing the Natural Resources and Coastal Beaches Committee for at least the past 5 years, and also vice chair of the Energy Committee for at least the past 2 to 3 years. I have proudly served as a town meeting member for Precinct 1 for the last decade, and I continue fighting and advocating for the residents and taxpayers, as there are numerous issues in town that they don't always become aware of, but they all are affected in the same way. I would like to state that I have a loving family that raised me well from
Okay, that's 2 minutes. I got to cut you off. You've reached your 2-minute opening. You could finish in your closing statement if you'd like. Okay, question 1. Fiscal responsibility is always an issue for town governments. The town budget grows every year. How do you balance the financial needs of the town against the financial burden on the residents? Let's go back and forth on that one.
So that's actually a really good question. The financial burden on the residents is going to keep increasing because of many issues. One is going to be lack of commercial and industrial space in town that has an imbalanced part for actually having the tax base being steady or decreasing for the residents. We have roughly a 10 to 11% commercial industrial base to a roughly 90% residential base, which is an unhealthy balance in any municipality if you want to have a low tax rate and a healthy, vibrant economy. As well, within that, there's efficiencies that towns can look at, not just efficiencies with manpower and consolidation, which is a good thing that should be looked at all the time, but it should also be looked at in the actual practices that the town takes through either permitting, through efficiency within fuel and electricity budgets, through the way that town procures and other operations as well too. And there's many other issues that I have been in touch with from either a town meeting perspective, a committee's perspective, especially from the Revenue Idea Task Force, which wasn't just tasked for looking at new revenues, but looking at finding new revenues within existing means by saving the taxpayer dollar and using that to fund other initiatives in the town that they didn't prior have in the beginning.
Okay, so commercial development would obviously help the tax base. Is there any other form of income that a town like Plymouth can look at other than commercial development?
Well, the town can always look at certain types of taxing through either licenses, pilot agreements, which are payment in lieu of taxes. They can look at shared agreements with either nonprofits or even other municipalities or state and federal organizations for a sharing cost approach. You get some of the needs that they want while not actually burdening the taxpayer with the full bill. There's also the cost saving approaches too. One would be for the electricity budget. So using high efficiency means for electricity, whether in the buildings, streetlights, et cetera, is one way that the town can easily go forward and cut a large chunk out of its bill. That also has grant opportunities for it. So those measures won't be full borne on the taxpayer. They'll reap the benefits by cost savings that can then be used to pay for other services that have been lacking in the town.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very good. Let's go into question number 2. What aspect of our town government needs fixing the most? What needs fixing the least? And do you feel that Plymouth has outgrown its current form of government?
So for fixing the most and fixing the least, it's sort of a hard one because there's aspects of all of it that need tweaking, especially once in a while. But I would say the biggest one, and I've gotten critics on this in the past for stating this either during prior charter committees as well as just in open forum. And I think that the easiest approach to fix some of the issues is that town meeting, the size of it should be reduced, not drastically, but I feel that the 9 people per precinct, that I enjoy more voices being heard instead of a smaller voice. But I think to actually right size it so that there's a better appropriation of ideas per people that want to and competition, that I think town meeting needs to be reduced a bit so that there's a better debate setting instead of having the time of people stating that they need to have an actual change of government. It should be fixed as best as possible first, and if that doesn't work, then it should be looked at to change the form of government, but not just in one foul swoop.
So for town meeting, are you saying that you think there should be less precincts or less people representing each precinct?
There should be less people per precinct, and I've tossed this around over the years from either 5 to 7 per precinct instead of the 9 because it becomes too cumbersome, and especially now in the middle of a census that we're looking at redrawing the lines in the next couple of years, that we will possibly be adding a couple more precincts and just expanding the size of town meeting, that everyone needs a representative voice in it, but I think the representative voice also needs to come at a cost of not having multiple people, but having a direct accountable amount of people for, and I've touted most of the time around 5 people per precinct. So you still get a diverse amount and a lot of competition, but it's not having the minority weigh for the majority.
Okay, and just in the last 30 seconds on that point, would critics say to you, well, then you're having fewer and fewer people making decisions for a bigger and bigger town? And is that fair? But how do you counterpoint that by having less people representing each precinct?
So how I counterpoint that is, yes, there'll be fewer people than in the past representing it, but also you'll get more interest for newer people running in because there's been, especially since I've been a town meeting rep, there's been a lot of times that half of a precinct has not had people to fill seats for that. At least now we've gotten some competition, especially for this year, for at least 2 or 3 precincts to have more people running than there are seats for, which is always good. You want to have competition of the seats for that because you want to have ideas brought forward and not just the likability of a person, they need to also like the ideas and how a person is going to better the town for the residents that they have in their neighborhood.
Okay, got it. Let's go to question 3. Turnover of sitting members of a board can be a positive or a negative. What are your thoughts on this?
I would say that it comes both ways. I would say it's positive because you always want to have change, new ideas and all that, but you don't want to relinquish some of the older ways of doing that. And that's some of the fear that people have with a new person coming in, that they'll totally change up how business is being done, whether within government or how there's the interaction within the public. But you also want to embrace new ideas at the same time and have a collective mix of not just new but old people or even familiar people within the community that have power on elected boards, so they get all different aspects from all socioeconomic backgrounds and from all different villages and aspects of business.
Okay, and for the select board in particular, because those 5 people need to know so much about so many subjects, and the learning curve must be immense to actually sit on the select board. How do you fit that into the response about how there should be turnover on a board?
In that, there's always what we joke about and even actually applaud during the beginning of a term for either a town meeting member or a select board or planning board member, that there's always that learning period that you want to do the catch-up period of getting acclimated with how business is being done and all that. If you haven't been within town government, even followed it before, you want to actually get your feet wet on how it's being done, so you're not sort of the oddball out. But with that as well too, gets you to implement your ideas that may be of a whole different nature to the position and interweaving them to actually get a better outcome that may not have been through the status quo of the past. So you want to have the ability to learn from the people that have been in there, and sometimes it's not a long time. Sometimes people take their entire term on a board to get through with it. But I think you want to have that partial learning curve when you get elected, so that you have a good intention of how everything works, but you want to be able to break out and have older ideas.
Okay, that's great. Now I'm going to give you a little trick here. It's called a 20-second rapid response. So you have 20 seconds to answer this one question. Are you ready?
Yes.
If you were given $5 million to spend in any way you desired for the town of Plymouth, what would you spend it on? Go.
I would spend it on the infrastructure and maintenance of buildings in town. While it's not the sexiest way to actually spend the money, it's the most cost efficient for taxpayers in the future, as the more you have dilapidated buildings, the more they'll cost, and the more efficient you can make them, the lower the cost for the residents in the future, helping to stabilize tax bills and also helping to maintain better morale within the buildings that employees work in, at the same time getting a more productive outcome.
All right, you had an answer right away. Thank you. And now we're going to go to your closing remarks, and you have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
So I just want to let the public know again that I am always available for the public. I've always been entrenched within the town, whether it be on committees or as a town meeting rep. I've always been open and transparent on all my issues and my thought. Even if I disagree with you, I always listen to every detail that is mentioned. I want to make sure that every voice is heard, whether it comes to a conclusion of agreement or disagreement, that I'm always there and open to discuss and bounce ideas around. I want to make sure that I always have an approachable presence in the town and have a way to bring new change in the town that I've been able to do in the past through endeavors and programs that I've helped sponsor. but I also want to make sure that they get pushed through and not just put on a shelf that has been in the past through the way that government is run. I don't want anyone to have the rationale that government is not working for you. I want to always work for the people, make sure that they have a front seat at the table all the time, whether it's through the better union bargainings, through better ways to bring business into town for better jobs, better pay, lowering the cost of housing so that people can live here and not have to move to other communities to live, and have the opportunities to raise a family from beginning to end, and always have the dream of being a Plymouth resident for a lifelong and not just for a part-time. I have grown up in this community my entire life. My family has as well. I want to keep that happening for future generations of my family as well as others. And I hope that you elect me in May. Thank you.
Thank you, Everett. Thank you for participating in this interview. We wish you the best of luck throughout your campaign and in the election. So we're going to get right into Ken's opening statement. Ken, you're going to have 2 minutes. Go right ahead.
Thank you. Fellow residents, I have been proud to serve as a member of your select board, and I am asking for your vote on Saturday, May 15th. I have continually spoken about the challenges facing our community and how we all need to work together in a thoughtful and collaborative manner to address them. As chairman of the select board, I have worked alongside and encouraged my colleagues to do that. And if I am reelected, I pledge to continue that collaborative approach. None of us could have predicted how the COVID pandemic would disrupt so many lives and put our community at risk. Over the past year, every day has presented a new challenge on how to govern our community, as well as how we must live our lives. Indeed, we needed to make a quick transition from 10 years of planning for our Plymouth 400th anniversary to doing all we could do to protect our citizens and local businesses. Doing this job has not been easy, and the select board made some very difficult decisions to confront this unprecedented health crisis. But that is what leadership is all about, making the tough decisions for the good of the entire community. We must debate the best way to solve a problem, but my vote has always been to do what is in the best interest of Plymouth. As we start to emerge from the pandemic, I want to use my experience and steady leadership for one more term to ensure that Plymouth remains a vibrant community, ready to withstand any challenge. I have dedicated many years to leading our town, and I have gained valuable experience that I believe will contribute to solving the problems we are facing today. I believe this experience, combined with my dedication and commitment, will allow me to continue to deliver results for the people of Plymouth. I ask for your vote together so we can continue to make Plymouth a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so for question number 1, fiscal responsibility is always an issue for town governments. The town budget grows every year. How do you balance the financial needs of the town against the financial burden to the residents?
We do that through a thorough analysis. Even before we start the budget, we are so fortunate to have senior staff that are really some of the top people in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts working on our budget. We talk about what we believe the services are that we need to maintain, and we discuss this with all of the individual departments. And then we see what is the revenue? How are we going to raise the dollars and begin to put those together? There are a great many meetings that take place, the advisory and finance committee, the departments, committees, citizens. Together, this budget takes a while, but in the end, we have a balanced budget, and that's what I think Plymouth has done well in the past few years. We have balanced our budget.
Okay, so let me ask you something about balancing a budget is one thing, but taxpayers are getting more and more leery about the fact that their taxes keep going up just to maintain the same services. So what can we do to increase income in our town to offset that?
Well, I think we make sure that we're taking advantage of every state and federal program And Plymouth has been very, very lucky in getting a number of grants that we've been able to utilize. That helps on the taxes.
Are there any other things aside from grants or things that we could get from a government or from another agency? Any other way that Plymouth can raise money other than through taxes?
Well, there are a number of options open to Plymouth. I mean, it's through our fees to make sure that our fees are very competitive with area towns. We do that, and I think measuring the service that we're giving. Are there other expenses that we need to cut out? I mean, and that's another part that you look at it. Sometimes you have to just cut in order to maintain the budget.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on to question number 2. What aspect of the town of Plymouth government do you think needs fixing the most? What aspect needs fixing the least? And do you feel Plymouth has outgrown its current form of government?
I, at this time, do not believe that we've outgrown our current form of government. I have a concern about looking at the charter, and that is that I don't want to see the governance of this town go from 100 and some odd people, which is our town meeting, to probably a council of 15 or less individuals. What happens now is if you want to have a voice in the government, you can do it. Town meeting is open, to everyone, whether you're an elected member or not. And I think that it is serving the town well. Town meeting gets it right, I'd say, most of the time.
Okay, what about what parts of the way the town is run would you fix if you could? Do you think it really has a big area for improvement?
Well, I think that it's kind of looking from within. I right now don't think that there are areas that we're especially deficient in, but we always have to kind of self-analyze and look and say, can we do something better? Can it be done for less? Is it a necessary service that we want to, offer our citizens? It's all on analyzing and coming to a collaborative decision.
Okay, and do you, aside from, you said that financially the town has a real ability to look at, we have some of the best minds looking at our finances and that whole process. Is that one of the things that you think Plymouth does well?
Absolutely. Our finance director has given town meeting members of the Board of Selectmen, other senior staff people, detailed information that analyzes every dollar that either comes in or goes out of this town. And I think that we have grown accustomed to having this information to make our decisions. This last town meeting, it showed. The budget was passed after a thorough review by the Advisory and Finance Committee, but people understood it. I can remember when people would walk into a town meeting and open up their packet for the first time, and you could tell just the way the papers were flowing out. That doesn't happen anymore. We have town meeting members that are vigilant, and the nice part about it is it's another 100 plus eyes that are looking at it and questioning and wanting responses to their questions.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's go to question number 3. And this is about turnover of sitting members of the board. Turnover can be positive or it can be negative. What is your thought on board participation and turnover?
Well, it's really up to the voters whether they, want the board members to come back. I think there's certainly something to be said for experience. In my case, I've had a number of years sitting on the board, and there's very little that I haven't seen that hasn't happened before in one way or another. I think if you have the enthusiasm and you want to make the commitment, any board member can serve for a number of years. people are living longer today. Before, if you were 75, 80 years old, they'd say, time up. That doesn't happen now.
What about new ideas, fresh blood? How do you feel about that entering a board? And what is the positives and what are some of the detriments of having somebody brand new on a board?
Well, I think it's always good to have new ideas. It's how you handle these ideas and bring them forth. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, you're not necessarily going to stay someplace for 100 years. I think new people being involved in the government is important, and I've encouraged people to do that.
Okay, and how do you feel, or what do you feel qualifications should be for somebody to sit on a board of selectmen in terms of how much knowledge you just have to know about the many different departments in a town, especially the size of Plymouth?
Well, what I have said to new members of the board is for the first year, it's like a railroad track. Look and listen. And I think that's important. So much of what we think is wrong with government isn't once you get in there and you start pulling back the various reports and you see how your government functions. I recommend strongly that any young person that wants to become involved, or somebody older, do some time with the Advisory and Finance Committee. That way you get to see every department in the town, and it gives you the opportunity to go into depth and see how your community spends its dollars.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for those answers on that. Now I'm going to ask you the 20-second rapid response question. So you're only going to have 20 seconds to answer this. And I'm going to make a statement, and then you're going to give me the thing that comes to the top of your head. If you were given $5 million to spend in any way you desired for the town of Plymouth, what would you spend it on?
Building maintenance.
Okay, that only took you 2 seconds. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, and now, Ken, we are actually ready for your closing statement, and you're going to have 2 minutes to do a close. And if you're ready, go right ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the ability to have this time to be with you today to voice my concerns and my credentials. I am running because I believe in Plymouth and because I have the experience to continue guiding our town decisions in the right direction. There are those that govern by anger or by bullying. There are those who govern to win one issue. There are those who govern for attention. I am none of those things. I govern year after year because I want to contribute to making sure we approach what we do by being fair, civil, and balanced. If you elect me for another term, I pledge to you that I will continue leading with the same enthusiasm, fairness, and solid leadership that I have demonstrated in the past. Again, I appreciate your vote on Saturday, May 15th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks for participating in this interview. We wish you the best of luck throughout your campaign and in the election. For our viewers, thank you for joining us. If you're interested in watching replays of this interview, please visit our website, pactv.org/elections, for replay times and online viewing options, including PACTV's on-demand and streaming service, PACTV Prime. And please make your choices heard by voting in the election on Saturday, May 15th. Thank you and good day.